All right, my English teacher friends. So for this video, I want to talk about getting students into doing deep critical analytical reads. And especially for AP language and for the rhetorical analysis and two of the three FRQs for the lit exam, students need to be able to perform real tight syntactical reads. And I know in my experience, when students come to me early in the academic year, this is one area that they're really lacking in. And it's just one of those gaps that I spend a large part of the academic year prior to the exam trying to fill those gaps. So one of the go-to texts that I think a lot of us use is Nancy Dean's Voice Lessons. There are some really good exercises in there to get students to ascertain deeper, more complex meanings of a text in terms of, how does an author construct meaning and what is the authorial intent of a piece by looking at the diction, the detail, the imagery, the syntax, and the tone. So for this, what I've done, for those of you that are familiar with my work, is kind of gone with the Plato's Plato discussion route in terms of gamifying the activity. So I find, and there is research coming out to prove this, it's just beginning to surface and come out, that the element of competition really helps students to learn. There's something about that collaborative effort when you're competing that gets kids to invest a little more than simply handing them like a worksheet or a handout. So I'll show you a couple of ways that I would do this in my classroom, and some of the exemplars and models that I have that are very similar in nature, very Nancy Dean-esque. So let's go on here. So I need to give credit to Kit Kittlestad. I was doing a lot of research on exemplars and models, basically like short little snippets and excerpts of text that are real rife for syntactical reads. And, coming up with them off the top of my head was very difficult. And Kit has a website on yourdictionary.com that had a lot of really good concrete examples to demonstrate how to perform deeper syntactical reads. So I got to give Kit credit for that. And if you want to explore her work, yourdictionary.com has a lot. So for this particular gamification method, I'm using the color Jenga, and there are others that you can use. So like if you go online and type in like free PowerPoint Hollywood squares, there's some really nice graphically designed PowerPoints, and there are 9 questions in this. There are 9 squares, so you could use Hollywood squares. Like I said, if you're familiar with my Plato's Plato discussions, Kerplunk, Hi-Ho Cherry-O, any of those prices right games that I have, Press Your Luck. So just be imaginative and come up with something creative for your use. But if you want to keep life simple, just head out to Walmart or Target and get yourself a color Jenga. It's like, 10, 15 bucks. So here are the directions and setup for this. So I find teams of 4 to 5 students works best. That way, students can't hide in the corners and disappear. They have to participate. And I find that 4 seems to be the magic number. So one member from the team goes to the Jenga, which is on a center table in my room, and they roll a dice. So you can see down here, the dice have colors on them that correspond to the Jenga pegs. So the student removes the color that they roll, and there are point values assigned to those colors. And you can, arrange them any way you want. So just as an example, orange is 10 points, blue is 25 points, yellow 50 points, red is 75 points. And I usually assign one color as a double point value. So in terms of the rest of the gamification of this, if the team answers incorrectly, the question defers to the next team. So all teams are preparing their answer in case it defers to them. And there are a lot of mistakes in this. There are a lot of incorrect, incomplete answers. I play game show host, and I'm the one that assigns the points based on the adequacy of the answer. And you play until all questions are answered or the Jenga falls. And usually in Jenga, students can remove about 8, 9, 10, 11 pieces. So you can get through most of the questions, and those that you don't, you just pause and get through them at the end. So in terms of what Kit had on her website, this is one sample text. It's from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and here's the excerpt for this. A solemn consideration when I enter a great city by night, that every one of those darkly clustered houses encloses its own secret, that every room in every one of them encloses its own secret, that every beating heart in the hundreds of thousands of breasts there is, in some of its imaginings, a secret to the heart nearest it. So we want students to make good observations and to get to the so what of the text. So that's something that I often ask my kids is, great observation, so what? So students might make the observation that this is one long sentence. It's one continuous sentence. So let's get to that. So here's question 1 for this. Dickens often wrote very lengthy and complex sentences. As we see in this excerpt, the sentence is separated by multiple commas and or semicolons. Further, this entire passage is just a single sentence. Great observation, so what? What is the authorial intent, and how do these syntactical features create meaning in the work as a whole? So that's a good juicy question for a team of 4 to 5 students to chomp upon. And invariably, as a collaborative classroom of students, of learners, we get to the fuller understanding and ascertainment of meaning of those syntactical features. So here's another one. Dickens used that every to start 3 phrases in this one short excerpt. Rhetorically, what is this referred to, and why is it significant to the work as a whole? So you can teach some literary and rhetorical terms as you're going through these questions. And one of the things I always get to, and it's kind of a staple of the College Board, is the meaning of the work as a whole, authorial intent, construction of meaning. So a lot of my questions get to that. So here's another one from To Kill a Mockingbird, and you're probably familiar with this quote. People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for. So just got a couple of questions. Kids come to the Jenga team by team, and we hammer these out. Harper Lee constructs a pattern. What they verb for. Syntactically, why is this important? So one of the things that I contend, and I have a couple of videos in my YouTube channel about this, is if we can train our students to ask the real good, juicy, girthy questions of a text, then we got ourselves some good readers. And then you couple that with students that have mastered the templates, of the declarative thesis and the syllogistic method. Stand back, man. You got yourself a learner on your hands. You got yourself a reader and a writer. So here's another one for this To Kill a Mockingbird. Anaphora is used at the ends of each clause. Great observation, so what? So that's one of the things students can do pretty well, fairly well, is make those observations of, yeah, I see anaphora at the ends of the clause. All right, good observation, but what is Harper Lee's intent? So here's another one. In this simple sentence, Harper Lee creates a juxtaposition between seeing and looking and the related but separate relationship between hearing and listening. Why? What is her point in doing so? So you can see here that the collaborative competitive element really amplifies and catapults this exercise a little further than if students were just to do this individually on a worksheet or do the turn and talk, or some of the things that we commonly do. So even though it's weird, even though the students aren't competing for anything, like they're not competing for a massive box of Skittles or lollipops or millions of dollars, they're just competing. They get really into it and start contesting each other. They get testy with me. They accuse me of playing favorites. It's pretty fun. So here's one from The Princess Bride. Sonny, true love is the greatest thing in the world, except for a nice MLT, mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, where the mutton is nice and lean and the tomato is ripe. So analyze and interpret the use of the colon in this sentence. What effect does it have? And syntactically, how does it create meaning in the work as a whole? So again, the nitty gritty little nuanced maneuvers of these authors, so like the use of a simple colon. Oftentimes students don't consider that in their reads. And I think it's gravy points when they can do that in their analyses. So here's another one for Princess Bride. Conceptually, given how the sentence is written, greater focus is placed on the sandwich than on true love. Why? What is Goldman's intent? So again, getting students to make those observations on their own takes yeoman's work as teachers. Like, it's really hard to get our students to do those types of deep read. So it's just repetition, 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 pattern, pattern, pattern. So that, I tell my students there's only so many things syntactically that an author can do. So even though in this case we're looking at The Princess Bride, you go to Peter Pan and look at this excerpt, you kind of can ask the same questions and make the same observations that we've seen already. So forget them, Wendy. Forget them all. Come with me where you'll never, never have to worry about grown-up things again. So we've kind of seen this already. The second never isn't necessary. First, in noting that the diction is very simple to reflect childhood innocence, how does this repetition add to the author's purpose? Second, the word forget is also repeated in two short, simple sentences. Why is this syntactically important, and how does it create meaning in the work as a whole? So even though you're looking at different excerpts and different passages, the questions just sort of repeat themselves. It's kind of similar like in teaching AP Lang. There's only so many things you could do rhetorically in a passage in terms of theory and technique. So I like to read a lot. So like every day, I don't teach whole length text in Lang at all. So it's a lot of small text, a lot of speeches, a lot of excerpts, and it's just skill and drill, tearing them apart, ascertaining meaning, going fishing for the rhetorical terms and devices. And once students have seen enough text, they're like, oh yeah, this Barack Obama speech is very similar to the MLK speech about Rosa Parks. So rhetorically, a lot of the same features are present in both texts. And that's ultimately what we want them to do. So I got one for Animal Farm. The pigs begin living in the farmhouse, and rumor has it that they even sleep in beds, a violation of one of the 7 commandments. But when Clover asks Merle to read her the appropriate commandment, the two find that it now reads, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets." Squealer explains that Clover must have simply forgotten the last 2 words. So here's the type of question that we want to ask with regards to that. The original commandment read, "No animal shall sleep in a bed," has a way to separate the humans from the animals from the humans. Syntactically, what is being suggested about power dynamics and government corruption through the inclusion of these 2 words? So some good diction, some good syntax analysis. So we got Little Women, a couple questions for that. Romeo and Juliet, Huckleberry Finn, and got to have Yoda with the inverted syntax. When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not. Right? So students have a good time with that because you don't see sentence constructs like that all that often. It seems to be the domain of Yoda. So we have a few questions for Yoda. So in terms of my YouTube channel and the work that I'm doing outside of my classroom, I'm doing a number of free webinars with Perfection Learning. So coming up shortly, I have one on my alternative grading methods. We're shooting for early to mid-March for that. And it's totally free. And I'm doing some work on the side with the National Writing Project. We're kind of scheming up my role and exactly what my position is going to be, and what projects I'm going to tackle. And then a big side project that I'm doing, a very important iron in the fire. And many of you guys know Tim Freitas from his work in the groups, his YouTube channel, and his Garden of English. We're collaborating together to write a textbook, and I'm knee deep in that process, and I'm in the research data gathering phase. So one of my projects is I created a Teach It Right 5-week mastermind. So for 5 consecutive weeks, Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm meeting with a small group of teachers that are willing to give a good retooling and a rehauling of the manner in which they teach composition in their classroom. So we're equipping those teachers with my templates, really teaching them solidly how to incorporate them into the classroom so that they can do the Bob Ross approach, and then take a look with their students at how the templates can be used across all of the expository modes. So this uniform approach to do literary analysis, rhetorical analysis, argument, persuasion, synthesis, and research. And then the teachers are reporting back to me. I'm looking over their shoulders. The teachers are incorporating the alternative grading methods and the Plato discussion. So it's an intense 5-week course. So if that's something you're interested in doing, then feel free to drop me an email at teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com, or you could look at my website at teachinghowtowrite.com. And if you are interested in this PowerPoint that I have created here with all the questions and the excerpts and passages, then feel free to drop me an email, and I'll send that your way. So teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com. So I know personally that once I get through Nancy Dean's exemplars and models, that I'm like, what else can I use? What else is there? So this is just one added element that could catapult our students further with their syntactical reads. So hopefully you found this to be useful and can get some benefit out of it. So for now, happy teaching, happy writing, and happy syntax.